I'm Alex Mabey at CCM Cafe. So I'm from Washington State. I grew up in the Olympic National Park where they filmed Twilight. Then I moved to Nashville when I was 18 to do music, and I was doing country pop music at the time. And then I think I was sensitive to the Lord at an early age in regards to where he wanted my path to walk. So I ended up leaving Nashville and kind of going with the way that the Lord showed me. Like he said, hey, I am going to be your development person. I am going to train you, and it's going to be in a different way than you think. And so all through my 20s, I traveled a bunch and did a lot of odd jobs. And then I moved back to Nashville about 10 years later. But during that time away, it really was the wilderness for me. And I got married earlier to somebody that dealt with PTSD and alcoholism. And so I was on the receiving end of that. And I had to kind of figure all that out early. And what I realized is that I can't figure it out. God is the one that's got this. And that's why it's so important to consult him with every decision in my life. And he kindly led me out of that situation that was tearing me apart. And so now, my music is all about that. It's about his grace and his love in the midst of such a human experience that we all go through, a hard breakup where we feel the Lord's really leading us out, but yet we feel shame. And I know that that's really common in the Christian community, and especially with divorce, there's such a connotation. And so I just felt the Lord say, like, girl, speak these truths that I have showed you so quietly, that you've listened to my soft and my still voice. So I started a podcast, and I didn't really care who listened to it. I just knew that God said to start speaking. And so that's what I've been doing. And my hope is that it reaches anyone who needs it. But it's just all about bringing together with me, as I'm still learning, how to get out of oppression spiritually in these ways that society thinks are so normal, or they might think that that's God, and it's not. And so all I can do is tell my story. And that's what this is it's like a big sister leading you through kind of how I did it and what the Lord showed me. And then hopefully the Spirit can speak through that. So that podcast is called Leaving Egypt. And I hope the same thing for my music, which the podcast is an extension of my music. They go hand in hand. And it's all about how God led me out of my marriage while also dealing with illness. So there's a lot in there, but it's not a stranger to what you guys go through, because we're all kind of going through the same stuff to some extent. So in my podcast, Leaving Egypt, I really seek to help lift shame, unnecessary shame that's not from God, and that's biblical, out of divorce or tough breakups where you feel like you need to forgive over and over and over again. But actually in the Bible, and I talk about this in my podcast, it talks about what forgiveness actually is, and that actually he's a God of boundaries too. So forgiving is a choice. And no matter what your situation is, whether you're with that person or not, you can still forgive. It's a choice. It's your will. It's aligning your will with God's will. But you have to forgive with boundaries to protect yourself. And God is not about abuse. Yes, he hates divorce. But what I've learned by digging into scripture and what God has showed me through his Spirit is that the divorce actually happens before it's called a divorce. The sin that happens before you split, it was already happening. The damage was already done. And so that's what God hates. That's what he's against. He hates what leads up to divorce. And so I dig into all these things in my podcast. And I know that he has really set me free from shame completely around that. And I give some crazy visions and miracles and dreams that he showed me. And I know he gave me the position of being a messenger to be able to talk about what he did so radically in my life, to know that he has the exact same heart for you. Yeah, so my album just came out. It's called The Waiting Room. It's Americana and Christian. And I am really proud of the work, and I think that God is going to use it in his perfect timing for the people that need to hear it. And it's all about that period of time before the answer or the miracle, before the dream come true, the waiting. And I feel like people just sometimes need somebody to just sit with them and comfort them and be a sister or a friend to them, saying, I see you in your pain. Before, hey, let's fix it, let's get you out, it's, I see you. And that's what this album does. And then toward the end, it starts to usher in that empowerment and that strength. It's my entire journey from front to back of leaving the marriage and going through that process of grief. And my next album is going to be a Christian record, and it's all going to be celebrating what God did in the aftermath. My single, These Wings, is out on Americana radio right now, and it's doing really well. And I couldn't be more surprised and honored because I'm an independent musician, and so I've not had support and help. And so the Lord made a way for me to. I did a Kickstarter, and my community pulled through, and I was able to get a team together for this album because I believe in its message so much, and I believe in what God can do through my willing heart and through the pain. He brings blessing out of pain. So, yeah, I'm really excited. So you should check out These Wings. If you go to my website, alexmabey.com, everything is on there. You can get to all the things from my website. Just make sure you spell my last name right, Mabey.